Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Buddhist Biohacker. The Buddhist Biohacker platform is creating conscious content for 1111D, and we are taking our stand against violence. Violence manifests in many forms: the word, the weapon, the emotion, and the fear. And we ask you to put your weapons down for the greater good of all mankind. United, we ascend. And welcome to everybody. I'm your host, Lisa Gunshore, as always, and I am going to fix my view here. Hold on, everybody. And so you can see everyone who's here. There we go. And I'm so joyful to have these four women here and to be a part of this roundtable today in this discussion, and I'm really excited for it. And I just wanted to say a few words before we get started. So I found a couple quotes that I thought were really perfect for the four of us. One is by John Piper. God has made us to be conduits of grace. The danger is in thinking the conduit should be lined with gold. It shouldn't. Copper will do. Which I thought was perfect because we're all human, no matter what we connect with or who we are. The other quote that I found that I loved so very much, pull it up here, is by Emerson. For those of you who don't know, I'm definitely obsessed with transcendentalism, so I loved this quote as well. Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the blithe air and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing. I see all. The currents of the universal being circulate through me, and I am part or parcel of God. And that's by Emerson. And so it is with great gratitude and grace that I welcome these three women to my platform. All three of you have been working with the Great Awakening for years and years and years. And I have such a great respect for the three of you. I value what you bring to all of us as teachers and healers and leaders in this movement. And each one of us connects with our own collective group of beings, which are really all one and the same, I'm sure. But Magenta with the 9, and Julie with Nityananda and the Saints and Siddhas, and Kristian with the HLT, and myself with the collective of the Golden Ankh. And you know, whatever names you give them, it is our connection to the divine, and we're all conduits of that. And I was really excited to bring that all together and to bring all of these collective energies together to be able to share with each other. I'm just really excited about it. And so with that, and with all those thoughts, with these incredible channels that we have here with us today, I just want to start out. I thought it would be great for each of you just to briefly introduce yourself, and maybe something you want to share that isn't what you always share, because all four of us are on YouTube much of the time. So I think many people watching this will know exactly who we are. So however you want to share, and Kristian, why don't you start?
Well, it's such a joy to be here. Magenta, you've been visiting me in my dream state. We've been having some great conversations. And Julie, Lisa, I love being able to connect with you at any time. So my path is a little bit interesting in that I was never trying to connect to spirit or be a channel or anything of that nature. I actually had a health crisis that led me on this path. And really, I've been reflecting on my path in this time of great awakening, and I feel like I'm sort of a purist in that I just sit in meditation and receive guidance and then share it. And I don't have any fancy tools or tricks. I'm just literally just like, okay, let divine will be done and let that guide me forward. And so it's been so inspiring, Lisa, you creating Buddhist Biohacker and bringing all of us together, because it's like, oh, you've been doing it too, and oh, you know about this. It's really a joy, because for a long time I was just, you know, sitting in meditation by myself. I didn't have some tradition I was following or anything like that. It was just life kept bringing me these circumstances that kept opening me to the divine more and more until I finally surrendered. So my work is bringing through messages from the highest light, and Mary Magdalene and I have a strong connection. And so I channel and write books through that channeling and share it with those who are called. And it's been, again, a real joy to come together with other channels and be able to share the wisdom and really support each other during this time that we've been working for years. I mean, we've been working for years for this time. And so I'm just in such joy of all those that I get to connect with now, and the magnetism that's happening right now for us is we're magnetizing to us those souls that really are resonating with what we're sharing. And Magenta, in the dream that you came to me on, you said to me, like, we're all channeling this highest light energy. And in the dream, I was talking with you more about it. And then I watched a video of yours like a few days later, and you went deeper into talking about how all the different channels and what they're bringing through, but the individual unique expression. So I'm just so grateful to be here and having so much fun with you ladies on this journey, when it's the most intense time in consciousness, but it's also just extraordinary as well. So thank you for having me, Lisa.
Thank you. Magenta, you want to share?
Yes, I'd just like to say thank you for asking me to be part of this roundtable. I've never met Kristian or Julie before, but I feel like I'm connected with you both. But as soon as I saw you, Kristian, I actually feel like I know you. And it is lovely to have the great gathering. I mean, I feel like that with all of the connected individuals. We're all part of this same sort of adventure or mission that we decided to incarnate for. So yes, to actually be part of the great gathering, even though it's online at the moment, it's really lovely. So my name is Petra, but I'm known as Magenta Pixie online, which was originally just a YouTube username, but it's become my name now. I did specifically intend to move into channeling because I felt that was what I was supposed to do. That was back in 1993, but prior to that, I'd had lots of other experiences. My father was a hypnotherapist. He first took me into hypnosis when I was about 3-4 years old to remove a headache, and then he taught me self-hypnosis at the age of 11. So I've always kind of been in that energy, and I used to sense fairies when I was really little, and I had memories of previous lives come in, or rather of things I used to do in previous lives rather than the actual memory of the lifetime. And that was around the age of 7. So it's always kind of been there. But in 1993, I really felt like I wanted to make a connection with what I perceived at the time to be a spirit guide. So I read a book on channeling, which was all about meditations. And I did these meditations and made this connection with this being that I perceived to be a spirit guide. And then over the years, since 1993, that's kind of increased and changed and morphed and upgraded. In the year 2000, I then found myself with this angelic being, and then that being morphed into 9. And then I started releasing the messages that I had from them. And it was in meditation at first. I did not ever think that I would be able to communicate with them outside of meditation. I would just go into meditation and get the messages. And then one day they were just there while I was awake and not in meditation. But obviously I now know that's the brainwave state. You can activate it when you're awake or asleep or whatever. So I've been releasing the messages on YouTube since 2008. And that's what I've been doing ever since, really, just bringing forward the information that they give me.
I'm so happy to have you here. And Julie?
Yeah, I'm really thrilled to be here. What an honor and a joy. My name's Julie Hoyle. I'm a transformation coach, an author, an artist, and an educator. And I've been offering awakening, healing, and spiritual development modalities via my website for the last 20 years or so. And everything really that underpins that is what happened in 1989 when I had a really radical, life-changing spiritual awakening. In a lucid dream, I was tapped on the top of the head by a great master yogi whose name is Bhagavan Nityananda of Ganeshpuri. And also, to put things into context, I've been a lucid dreamer and been very intuitive and empathic really since the day I was born. You know, I don't know anything different really. But after that lucid dream, literally everything just exploded. And then I began, and I've shared this, so I won't go too much into detail. I've shared it on this platform before. But what happened is that then I began having lucid dreams with these amazing masters and teachers and saints and sages and siddhas. And, you know, what I'm seeing and realizing now is that starting from 1989 up until this point, they were really training me and preparing me. And I'll, you know, I hope to be able to speak a little bit more about that, you know, during this, this round table. So essentially, you know, what I'm being sort of drawn to speak about is really living in the space of trusting the flow of the divine and connecting in with that, you know, however that sort of shows up for you. And the thing that I really love, really love, is how the Buddhist Biohacker platform is, you know, bringing us all together and creating these opportunities where we can meet one another, share our wisdom, and support one another with respect to getting the message out. And actually, on that note, with respect to what Kristian was saying about having a lucid dream with Magenta, I had a lucid dream with you this morning, very early this morning. I was in your house and we were discussing how can we feed people, you know, with respect to the message and how we're going to sort of, you know, present that. And I decided to go to your stove and I was, you know, doing scrambled egg and soy bacon. I said, I like to keep it simple and straightforward. And you were saying, oh, that's cool. And you were cooking something up. And then your husband was there as well. We were all laughing and joking and sharing, you know, the different ways that we present and we share the wisdom that is able to feed people. And I just love that dream. And I love that we were sort of connecting before we actually met here today. So I thought that was worth sharing. So anyway, thank you for this opportunity. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much. I love this so much. I was like so excited to get the four of us together for sure. And I picked some fun things to talk about because I think, you know, our work it's intense work, you know, it's hard work and it takes a lot out of us. And I think all of us have been working our throat chakras like crazy since March and far beyond that. And I guess I should share too with everybody before I get too crazy with my questions because I'm so excited about them. But I'm Lisa Gunshore and I have been channeling since 2008 very directly. I was determined that I was going to do that. However, my parents have shared with me stories of when I was about 4 years old that they walked into my room at like 2 in the morning. They heard noises and I was sitting straight up in bed speaking in a man's voice in a different language, and it gave them like a heart attack. My dad still freaked out about it, I think. So I've been channeling much longer than I probably realized and have been connected, of course, to the unseen and, you know, saw people who've passed away since I was a little kid. And so that's really my journey. But in 2008, I read a book called Opening to Channel by Sanaya Roman and Dwayne Packer. And that book transformed my life. And about a month into doing the activities in the book, I brought forward Oxen Shaman, who is an Egyptian master teacher who came through me back then. And in fact, I was looking at some of my notes that I want to share today of some of his first words through me, which were incredible. And so he spoke through me, like directly through me in his voice for a couple of years. And then it's sort of shifted to more of a group of beings. And now they really told me who they were only back in April. I had this very interesting experience with a mountain goat of all things. And they came through and told me that they were the collective of the Golden Ankh and Merkaba light, which made a lot of sense because of the Egyptian energy that I had been working with for a really long time. So I've been channeling since 2008 and, you know, writing out lots and lots of information and trying to understand quantum physics, because that's a lot of what they speak about is genetic structures in quantum physics. So I've really become passionate about epigenetics, hence Buddhist Biohacker. I mean, Buddhist Biohacker truly is called that because Epigenetics and biohacking has become a huge part of my Tibetan shaman practice, which is really transforming our DNA structures, and that we really have the ability to do that. And if you saw a picture of me in 2008 versus now, you would believe it, because I am completely different, and not just 100 pounds lighter, but I look completely different. So that's been my journey with channeling and what that's been about. And have been very lucky to be connected with Julie really that whole time. I think we've known each other 16 years or more, and it's been just fabulous. And Kristian and Magenta, I've just connected with you this year, but I feel like I've just met these incredible women and teachers and soul sisters and starseeds, and you know, all of us deployed here to do this work, and I just think it's amazing. So that's me. But one of my first questions, I thought it would be really fun, because I think all 4 of us are lucid dreamers. And I thought, why don't we share one of our favorite lucid dreams and just have, you know, get the conversation started. I have lots of little prompts, but I think we have so much to share. So whoever wants to share first, you go ahead. I think let's talk about lucid dreaming, because it's a huge part of getting information, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Who wants to go?
Okay, well, I will then. So when I first started lucid dreaming, I knew nothing about it at all. And so I was really scared by these experiences. Luckily, I had a father. As I said, he was a hypnotherapist. He'd studied psychology and Carl Jung and metaphysics. So I had a mentor my whole life. So I was very lucky. So I would just go and see my daddy and explain what was happening to me. And he gave me this book on lucid dreaming, which I read, and it was everything in the book that was happening to me. But it also gave me some tips to be able to control the experiences. So I was able to then move, I didn't have the internet back then, but I was able to move from a fear-based dream state into something higher than that, and actually start to really explore. So that was kind of when I was, I think consciously that was happening in my late 20s, but I remember that it did actually happen when I was a child, but I didn't really understand it or really analyze it too much back then. So my favorite lucid dream experience was probably around 7, 8, 9 years ago. I repeatedly had lucid dreams, but I'm not always able to trigger them. I try to, because it's a really good way of divination and finding out information, and remote viewing and manifestation from the lucid dream state is really powerful. But I'm not always able to trigger it, and sometimes it just happens. But I was working on dream manifestation, and I wanted to be able to work with something small and then start to move forward. And I was working with dream manifestation specific to the environment. So I wanted to learn to change the environment, move, structures. I'd already done all the flying and all of the transportation system in the dream state. I now was working with the structures of the environment. So I decided that I would, once I became lucid, I decided I would imagine a door, and then I would have something behind that door. And if I could manifest something small behind that door, then I knew I could use this door exercise to start to manifest more and more and more and change environmental structures. So I decided to manifest a small blue crystal. So in my mind, I was just thinking of a tiny blue crystal. So when I became lucid, I'm looking around for the door. I found the door. I'm thinking there's a blue crystal on a table. Sitting on a table is a tiny little blue crystal, like a little blue lace agate crystal about this big. That's all I was manifesting. I opened the door, and right in front of me was an entire shimmering royal blue geometric structure. So it was nothing like a crystal, and I was really shocked. But I then knew, I thought, oh, that's a real crystal. In this third dimension, the crystal, that's just the geological matter of the crystal. The crystal is a crystalline matrix. It's a vortex. It's a stargate. And I realized that was a crystal. And I realized that it was a stargate and I could go through it. I looked at my hands to try to keep myself lucid, because I know looking at your hands will keep you lucid. And I normally see clear hands. but these hands were blue and lined with I'd become the crystal before I'd even gone through it. So my entire body was tinged with blue. So I leaped through the middle of the crystal, and I'm fully aware that if you allow your emotion to go into fear or the opposite, over the top excitement and this, wow, this is amazing, that can take you out of it. So you have to remain very calm and neutral emotionally, and that's not always easy because you are discovering new, profound, wonderful things all the time. So I dealt with the fear side of it most of the time, but the whole sort of wow factor and this over the top excitement was more difficult. But I come to this neutral place as I leapt through the center of this blue crystal stargate. I found myself moving down, and it was as clear as anything, as if I was actually there, which is why this is kind of my favorite lucid dream, because it's not quite happened. I've had lots and lots of different types that have been amazing, but this was so clear. And it's almost like when you're floating down onto perhaps a planet's surface, you can feel the breeze and the sunlight, you know, you can actually feel the weather and the temperature. So I'm falling down onto this planet's surface, and I remember seeing these huge pink rocks. They were like a rose pink with little black dots on, like huge crystals, and there was water all over the surface. So there was water about this high, you know, just a few inches of water. And as I landed onto the planet and put my hands in the water, and I looked around, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this isn't even Earth. And because I was so excited and overwhelmed to actually feel, because most of my lucid dreams have been on Earth type terrain, and this was not Earth. I knew it wasn't Earth. And that realization of me finding myself in a full embodiment of actually being there, that slowly broke the lucidity, and then I woke up. And I've never quite been able to recapture that. I have spoken to the Nine about that experience and about the blue stargate specifically, and I did make a video about this lucid dream at the time, although I didn't put it on my main YouTube channel. I created a channel called Magenta Dreams. If you actually look on YouTube for Magenta Dreams, you will find me talking about that dream. However, I've forgotten the password and the login, so I cannot get into that account. But those dreams I was speaking about, and I think, I don't know, there's maybe 7 videos on that little channel. They're all still there. And as I said, I can't even access them. I can't remember the password, the email, or anything. So that's kind of gone by the wayside, but it's still out on YouTube. So yeah, I would say that was probably my favorite dream. And that whole blue stargate, I got a lot of information about what that was, and I brought that channeled information forward, and that's all gone in my book, Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame. So the whole blue stargate journey and what it is, how to create it, you know, what it actually means. That's I was able to bring forward quite a lot of information as a download from that lucid dream. But as I said, I've never quite been able to recreate that experience since. So I hope I will again, because it was amazing.
Wow.
Wow, that's so amazing. I love that.
Yeah, and I don't know what planet it was, but I'm kind of feeling it may have been the Pleiades, but it could have been Lyra. I don't know for sure.
That's so interesting, because that Lemurian vision that I had was all like those pink kind of rocks that you're talking about. So it's very interesting. Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah, well, it could, I mean, I guess, you know, going on to another planet or into another time period is potentially the same thing. But in the actual lucid dream, I was perceiving it as a planet, because I was actually looking at the terrain of the planetary surface and actually feeling the water. And the memory of seeing those rocks and landing on the planet and putting my hands through the water is no different from the memory of me going swimming the other day down the local leisure centre and getting in the water. It's the same memory in my mind. It's as clear as a memory that I've experienced in this physical reality. So yeah, really profound.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was so amazing. it gets me thinking about all the different dreams, you know, and I love, Lisa, that you brought this in. I didn't know lucid dreaming was a thing. I've been lucid dreaming my whole life, and I thought everyone could do that. Like, because I wasn't raised in any sort of tradition around this, I just thought everyone can adjust their dreams, and I know that they're dreaming. And so, Lisa, when you brought this question in, or give us a heads up about this, and then Magenta, hearing your story, it's just expanding so much for me, because I've been lucid dreaming my whole life, didn't know it was a thing until someone told me. There's like books and you can learn how to do it. And it just blows me away, because my team, the HLT, has said that these dream states are actually, we're living multiple dimensional realities in the dream state, which is when you describe it as a memory. I've had dreams of the same nature where it feels just like a memory, and it's because we are living other lifetimes and multidimensional lifetimes in our sleep state here. But what really stood out to me when I was reflecting on this was, I had many years ago, this was back like when I was 25 and I was very young and just starting to open up. Dead people started coming to me in 2012 and giving me messages for loved ones, and I started doing more mediumship type work then. But prior to this, I didn't know what I believed about death or any of that. And I had a close girlfriend of mine from high school who was murdered. And then I had like 2 other friends that made their transitions around the same time. And so it really had me going like, wait, what happens, and what do I believe here, and what's really true? And she actually came to me in a dream. And I remember this like it was yesterday, and like Magenta, you were saying, like it was a memory. And she and I were walking along these railroad tracks in the town we grew up in. And she was explaining to me everything about death, and that, you know, she was fine, and that this was part of the agreement that she had made. And so she was healing some things with this gentleman that all of this had transpired with. And she just laid it all out for me. And it was the most I woke up so thrilled to understand about what this terrible thing of death was, and to understand that my friend was just fine. She was just in another dimension of consciousness, which I now understand that to be. And she's come to me throughout the years. And recently she came to me, and I asked her, we were sitting at like a vanity getting ready and for some show or something. And I said to her, were you surprised that it was like this really dramatic way that you left the plane of consciousness? And she turned to me and she said, not at all. I planned it that way. Like, she was so matter of fact. And it was just so, it just brings such a sense of expansion. And so when I wake up, and I'm sure you all feel this way, when you wake up from those dreams, you're just like, so amazing that we're in this reality, and then we're in that reality, and then it's just incredible. I've had dreams where I wake up and I'm just like, I want to go back into the dream state because it's so delicious. And for me, it seems to be, I have had the flying dreams. I did not like that. I did not like, they lifted me out of the bed. One time Mary Magdalene came in and like they lifted me out, and I was like, no, I don't want to do this. So they kept working with me every night to, you know, kind of test my resiliency and my comfort with that. But for me, it's often folks from the other side or from different dimensions of consciousness coming in, or Magenta as meeting in the dream state and giving me guidance or information or clarity. And I just love it so much. And I love hearing that there's actually, you know, books and things where folks can get guidance about how to work with this, because again, it just started happening to me. And then my team started just working with me on it and helping me and guide and direct me. So I can't wait to hear Julie and Lisa's. It's just so fun to share this. Thank you, Lisa, for bringing this in.
You want me to go next, Lisa? Or do you want to...
Do it.
All right. So I was actually told to share this dream. And this lucid dream happened in, I think, 1998 or 1999. So it was 10 years after I had the sort of radical awakening. And in this dream, I woke to lucidity and found myself in a forest kind of setting. And I was with Hopi elders. And we were sitting around, and they had been giving me teachings. And then the chief elder said he wanted to take me to this place, to this room. And he handed me a really thick book. And he said, choose your gifts. So I started looking through the book. And there are all these wonderful illustrations and then descriptors of the gifts of the spirit, as you know, in Christian parlance. And then there are also these images of great beings and saints and siddhas and, you know, amazing angels and angelic forms. And I knew them all because I had worked with them for 10 years, you know, after the radical awakening up to that point. And I also knew which gifts to choose. So I closed the book and then I said to the Hopi chief, I choose the gift of healing and prophecy. And he said, be careful with the gift of prophecy. It's dangerous. And I said, yes, I know, because, you know, I've been working with that and I really use it respectfully and with great love. So then he smiled and then he took me back to the circle. And then he offered me this cup, and in the cup was this green herbal liquid, and he invited me to drink it. So I took it, I drank it down, and then all the Hopi elders carried me to this clearing. They laid me down. I was kind of like lying star-shaped, and my wrists were tied to wooden posts, and my ankles were tied to wooden posts. And then the chief Hopi Indian started chanting and shaking a rattle, and he was dancing around my body. He did it 3 times, and then the others were drumming and they were all chanting. And then the chief stomped on my chest, and he really forcefully stumped down his right foot, and he cracked open my rib cage. And then with his right foot, he pushed his foot into my chest, into the cavity, and he started squeezing and turning my heart. And, you know, for everybody who's had a lucid dream, we all know that when you feel joy, it's really magnified. If you feel fear, it's really magnified. And, you know, if you feel pain, it's magnified. So the pain was incredibly intense. Yet at the same time, the only way I can describe it is it felt like really good pain. And as he was twisting and squeezing and turning the heart, he said, the heart is being turned and squeezed to contain the message of the blue star in accordance with the Hopi prophecy. The heart is being squeezed, is being turned and squeezed to contain the message of the blue star in accordance with the Hopi prophecy. So with that, I felt myself being pulled back to waking. And when I woke up, I cannot tell you, the energy was just incredible. I was just vibrating and pulsating. And, you know, I felt like, you know, it was going out into the universe. And it took me several hours actually to sort of like calm it down. And then it took several days to assimilate, you know, the energy of what I was being given. And what happened is, you know, I realized I'd heard about the Hopis, but I really didn't know anything about their teaching. I didn't know anything about who they were or what they represented. And I remember doing a little bit of research at the time, but I didn't find anything like too insightful, especially with respect to where I was in my life right then. But I absolutely knew that at some point in time, I would understand the full meaning of what that dream meant. So what happened was when you, Lisa, when you gave the little pointers about, you know, what we might be discussing during this round table, and I was contemplating which lucid dream to speak about, the saints, the sages and siddhas that I work with said, share the dream about the Hopi prophecy. Because they said it was not a one-time event. This message was given in the hearts of many, whether you're a lucid dreamer or not. The work of planting the seed and putting the message of the blue star prophecy into the hearts of those that have the heart and mind to see it and perceive it was done years and years ago. It was done many years ago. And what we've been doing is preparing and getting ready for this time now, because, you know, I did a bit of research a couple of days ago, and it's absolutely phenomenal because the Hopis say that the blue star prophecy is the 9th and final sign before the day of purification and the movement out of the fourth world into the fifth world. So all of us here, I believe, you know, and many more throughout the universe, throughout the world, you know, are, if you like, the vehicles for that. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a physical sign like a blue star dropping from the sky. What I'm perceiving from what they've told me is that the blue star has been already dropped, if you like, into the hearts of many, and it is coming forth. It is showing itself at this time of change. And, you know, Magenta shared that in terms of her own dream and what that was all about. And you know, with respect to who we are and what we're sharing and the way we're sharing it, really speaks to that and speaks to what is happening right now with this movement out of the fourth world into the fifth world. And it's just incredible. It's amazing.
That's so amazing. Well, and what's amazing is I picked up this book called Star Ancestors just a couple weeks ago, and we had talked about the synchronicity because I had watched a roundtable on Magenta's channel, and there was a woman who didn't say very much for quite some time, and then she started talking about the little people. And when she was talking about the little people, I'm like, wait a minute, I had this experience. And this was in 2011, and I'll never forget it because I've had encounters with ultra terrestrials before, but in 2011, I was in a third-story apartment, and I remember waking up, and couldn't move. I was paralyzed. There was something like I couldn't move my mouth. I couldn't move. And there were these lights just shining in my window, and there were all these little beings walking around my room. And I remembered thinking like, well, this is crazy. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, what is happening? And they were running all around, and there was a bunch of them. And I remember chanting Om Namah Shivaya because I felt like I wanted to be able to move. I was like, I don't like that I was like paralyzed, and it was gone. And in the morning when I woke up, I thought, well, gosh, was that a dream? Was that real? And you know, I knew I'm in a third-story apartment. It was like a car had parked in front of my windows. There was like no way those lights were coming from down below. You know, they were coming right out my window. And there were all these little footprints in my carpet. I still have a picture of it because I couldn't believe that there were all, I mean, I was like, this was real. But what's interesting is, so this woman on Magenta's channel was talking about the little people, and I was like putting this all together. And then Julie, you had talked about the Blue Star Prophecy. So my husband has this book from an ex-girlfriend from like 20 years ago called Star Ancestors. It's sitting in our basement, and I picked it up 2 weeks ago. And the first chapter is about the little people, and the second chapter is about the Blue Star Prophecy. And I about fell off my chair. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, you guys are just giving the information like boom, 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 synchronistically. And, you know, and then here, Magenta, you're talking about this Stargate as well. And I had this very interesting experience, like this was also right around the same time 2 weeks ago. I read this book, and of course, you know how that goes, you guys, like everything starts to open up everywhere. And I had this experience in a lucid dream state. And this wasn't the dream I was going to share, but I guess I'm going to share it. But I was in a lucid dream, and I woke up in the dream, and I was in a starship. And I knew it was my starship, and I saw Ashtar, so I knew that's where I was, but it was like a symbol, so I don't even know how I interpreted that. But I was in this starship, and I was like, I have to find a mirror. Like, all I wanted to do was see myself. And I went, and I finally found like this shiny kind of mirrored surface, and I looked, and I was all blue. And I had this blue, I mean, I do have curly hair, but it was like this beautiful, like blue, curly, wavy hair, and everything was blue, and this like beautiful, like, it was like a sky blue, but it was like luminescent, you know, and that was just 2 weeks ago. And when I woke up in the morning, you know, I told my husband, I said, I don't even know that I can use my name anymore. Like, I got a lot of information on that starship, but it was just amazing. Like these openings that happen in our lucid dream state. And that dream, I mean, it was so clear what I had come here to do, who I really am as a being and my essence and what I'm here to do. And it's silly things like why my eyes are the color that they are, you know, why I painted this eye behind me, like all of this energy of just, and I think that's what's so amazing about lucid dreams is when you have a powerful one, it just never leaves you. It never leaves you. And the dream I was going to share is actually really silly, but I love it so much, is I have a lot of really peculiar lucid dreams where I'm like in buildings and helping like uncover stuff, or, you know, sometimes I even have like guns and I'm like protecting things. And I never really understood it really until this year. I mean, honestly, I really didn't know what was going on until this year. And I started to learn all sorts of new information. And so my dreams have always been really intense. And I have this joke with myself that like, when I go to bed at night, it's like, okay, I'm going in. Like I'm going in, like, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going in. And I kind of made it a joke so I wouldn't be scared of what I was experiencing when I'm in the lucid state. And so some of my favorite dreams are ones that are actually very peaceful and nothing's happening, because so much happens in my dream state. And so my favorite dream of all time happened about 14 or 15 years ago. And I love to fly, Kristian. So I flew out, I was like flying around. I love to fly around the planet. And I flew to the woods, and there was 3 bears in the woods. And they let me walk with them. And I asked if I could, and they told me I could, you know, telepathically. And I just walked in the moonlight with the stars in the woods with these 3 bears. Oh, it makes me emotional. And it was just so peaceful, you know? It was like this peaceful, I wasn't fighting anything. I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't experiencing anything. It was just really like, oh, it was just such a gift. Like I'll never forget that dream, because it was so just for the animal kingdom to allow me to be a part of their space and just walk with them. And oh, anyways, those are my stories.
Beautiful.
So amazing. I love hearing this. Have you all, I've been having an increase in dreams within dreams. Have you all been noticing that? It's been happening more and more that I'm waking up in the dream, that I'm dreaming the dream. And then I'm like, oh, I'm telling her about the dream, but I'm still in the dream. That's been happening more. Have you all been noticing that too?
Yes. Yeah.
Any idea the significance of that? Like, because that's been happening to me a lot, and I have no idea why that's happening, but it's been happening a lot.
I think that relates to expansion of consciousness, really. You know, realizing that, you know, all those states intermingle somehow, and it's all one. It's 0 point, or whatever you want to call that, you know, it's being in the Supreme Self is what the yogi
what I was going to say. Expansion of consciousness is going to do that. Can I just say, Lisa, when you were talking about the bears, I picked up, they were not bears. They were actually your star family, but they've come to visit you in the form of the animal kingdom. That's why you remember this as your favorite dream, and that's why it was so peaceful. They're your star family, and they do come and visit us, but they don't necessarily show us their true form in the dreams, and will often be an animal or a bird. And about the blue star, the 9 did tell me that stargate is a celestial stargate. So it is part of the star system. So the whole blue star prophecy and that blue star is connected.
Yes. Amazing. Wow. I love that. Amazing.
It's so amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, one of my questions I had for you guys is, what is your favorite symbol that you have worked with or work with, and why? I think there's so much about symbolism right now, and there's so much that's been taken from us and used in negative ways. And there's this whole concept of reclaiming symbols. And I thought, what a great opportunity for us to talk about the symbols that we love and why we love them, and, you know, fill that space with some light energy. So whoever wants to share first, just jump in.
Yeah, I don't mind going first. You know what I've really loved more than anything for the last 30 some years is the Om symbol. And, you know, and that is obviously because when I had the lucid dream with Bhagavan Nityananda, he gave me his initiating mantra, which is Om Namah Shivaya. You know, I bow to the light within me, and Om is the primordial sound. So because of that, because I've used that mantra, you know, so extensively for a long period of time, I've always loved that mantra. And you know, I've got several pendants with it, and I've got rings and all kinds of things. But, you know, I have to say that probably in the last maybe 5 years or so, that there's been a movement away from that, and more of a focus on looking at absolutely everything as a symbol and as a sign, and as a message. So clouds, palm trees, you know, pebbles, stones, whatever shows up, and you know, and I really see as being a gift from spirit or from source, and that is offering a message. You know, I just absolutely love. So it's like I'm on hyper alert for all of these signs and symbols and messages throughout my day, wherever I am and whatever I'm looking at. You know, so it's like everything has become that. Everything has become a vehicle for, you know, giving and receiving messages and signs and symbols and all of that. And I really love that, because it's really the shamanic way of living one's life and recognizing that everything is a form of the great creator. And if you have that kind of vision, you don't miss anything, really. And I always say as well, look, sometimes I can be a bit dense, you know, if you have to, you know, kind of hit me on the back of the head so I can see it. But what a great question. I love that question, Lisa.
I love it too. That reminds me, Scott found this. We were hiking in Yellowstone this weekend, and he like was walking, and this tree like came out and like grabbed onto his backpack, and this little tree looking stick like fell into his backpack. So he brought it home. Speaking of finding signs and symbols, he's like, I need to figure out what this is about, because you have this big, it looks like a little tree. So we'll see what he gets from that. Yeah.
Well, I showed you mine. Hold on. I think I talked about that, right? I think last time we had a and I loved it. It just landed at my feet the other day, and I just love it so much.
It's so cool. I'll have to find the one. It's still in the car, so I can't show you right now, but I'll get you guys a picture of the one he found, because it's similar actually. So who else wants to share? We're all so polite here. You guys jump in.
I think it's really, really difficult to choose a favorite symbol. I love so many. I love the symbol of the matrix that I work with, that the Nine have used as a template for their teachings, which is, you know, straight line that way, and then the diagonal lines. So like a wheel. I love the Metatron's cube. I love the flower of life. I love the infinity symbol. But I would say my favorite, if I had to pick, because I agree with Julie, everything is a symbol, and it's about, you know, this is the time that we are drawing symbology forward and decoding the metaphor, decoding the symbols. Everything's become a symbol. But if I absolutely had to choose my favorite, I think it would probably be the triquetra, which the Nine speak about in my book, Black Box Program and the Rose Gold Flame as Antidote, and how the triquetra is the symbol of the Trinity. And I have this lovely pendant. I wear it, and there's the triquetra. So I think it would probably be that. I think it would probably be that. This was sent to me actually from somebody who read that book and modeled this beautiful pendant on the meditation in that book. And you know, there's a little sun on the back, and it's organized. It's just gorgeous. Nice. But yeah, the triquetra I think is my favorite if I had to pick one.
Oh, That's beautiful.
It is really lovely.
It's really beautiful. My gosh. Kristian, what about you?
So I'm really resonating with obviously what both ladies were sharing. In 2007, right before I had like what I sort of call my big awakening, I had this moment where I said, it just burst out of my mouth, I want to be spirit led, because I realized, my life was not working with the programming that I was working with. And from that moment forward, really my life became about following all the signs and symbols and really letting those lead me forward. And now, and I'm sure all of you ladies relate, like if a fly comes to me, I'm like, okay, what's the message? What are you telling me? I just was working with clients recently in my one-on-one practice, and she's getting a bunch of mosquito bites. And so the mosquitoes had a very specific message for her. So recognizing that all of life is communicating with us all the time, and that everything, and from my construct and what I feel is true is that everything is here to support us in our awakening and remembering who we are and returning even the negative agenda. It's all pushing us, it's all symbols to push us to our highest potentiality and our highest expression. So I work with everything as though it is an important symbol, because I believe that it is. Yes. For me, when I was tuning into this, for me, I often doodle the infinity symbol, and it's been with me since I was a child, and I never, I didn't know for some time that that's a very powerful symbol. I'll see it in my dream state, I'll doodle it, it's just always with me. And so that's something that comes up a lot in my meditation. And then lately, for the last like 6 months or so, the rose has been coming to me. And I know there's many psychic development tools where they have you focus on the rose, but I've never used any of those. The roses just started coming to me as my work with Mary Magdalene is increasing and changing. And like I'll smell roses, and the skincare that came to me is all from the rose essence, and just everything's infused with this rose energy. So I'm having a lot of fun with that right now. But I feel like this spirit-led journey that we're on, and my commitment has just kept growing to be, I want to be 100% spirit-led, then everything in life is bringing us something beautiful and amazing, even the really hard stuff and the stuff that makes us not so happy. It's like, okay, what is the symbology here? And I love living this way. It's so counter to what I was programmed to live in. And it's the richest, most delicious way to live.
Oh, I love what all three of you are saying, because I think the fun part of being in an open space is following all the symbols. Yes. Because there's things that we just don't even know, and I have a great little story for you, which is my husband and I went to Memphis. We drove to New Orleans a couple years ago to the Jazz Fest. My husband's a drummer, so that was his deal, and it was really fun. So we drove like 30 hours. I mean, it was insane. And we went to the Memphis Drum Shop, which is a world famous drum shop, and they have a gong chamber. And so we were about an hour out of town. And for everybody who's not music privy, like Led Zeppelin, John Bonham had a gong, like everybody has these gongs, these drummers. So drummers love gongs. Excuse me. So we're about an hour out, and I said, why don't you just call and see if we can get in the gong chamber? And my husband's like, there's no way we're getting in the gong chamber. I said, just call. So he called, and he's like, we're about an hour away. We want to go in the gong chamber. And they said, well, why do you want to go? And my husband said, well, my wife is a healer, and she wants to see the gongs. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you're the drummer. Like, why would it matter? And he goes, I don't know. I just felt like that's what I should say. And the owner, Jim Pettit, who's awesome, got on the phone, and he was like, oh, your wife's a healer. You can come and I'll talk to you. So we get to the Memphis Gong Chamber. We get to the drum shop. We're sitting in this room that's like very fancy. It's like, many, many world famous drummers have sat in this room to create their custom made drums. And here comes the owner. And, he's like asking us all these questions. He's like, why do you want to see the gongs? Like, what do you do? So I started telling him, I said, well, I'm a channel and this is what I do. I said, but I don't really know why I want to see the gongs. I thought my husband wanted to see the gongs. And I said, he's the drummer, I'm the woo-woo. And I'll never forget this, because Jim said, he goes, every drummer is really wearing a Kundalini dress underneath their outfits. Yeah, he was like, they're the most woo-woo of all. He goes, I'm taking you to the gong chamber. And I was like, oh my God. So we go into this room, we go through the back of the drum shop, through their inventory. He opens this huge door and we go into this room and he shuts the door, soundproof. So your ears, like the pressure went and everything. And there's all these beautiful, I mean, just the most beautiful gongs you've ever seen. And he clapped his hands and all the gongs shuddered. And he goes, they know you're here.
Wow.
Like, oh my gosh, like this guy is so amazing. I'm trying to get him on the show, by the way. So Jim, you need to come on and talk about this. So we go and he starts showing us all the gongs, and he has the original gong that made the sound of the starship in Star Wars, like the original Star Wars movies. And that's actually a gong that you're hearing when it goes through space, like all this cool stuff. So there's this huge gong. I mean, it's like 80 inches or something, it's gigantic. And he's like, I want to play this gong for you. And so he had me stand in front of the gong with my back to the gong, and he played it. And the vibration, because this gong was taller than me, so it was like surrounding my entire body. I saw the point where life was created on Earth. It was like, boom, there was life. And I started crying. And the gong shuddered for a while. And then he said, what did you feel? And I told him, I said, I saw this point where life was created on Earth. And he said, that's what everybody says when I play this gong. So needless to say, we bought a gong behind me, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So, because it's all about symbols. So we have this gong and we bought it. This is 2 years ago now. And so we've played the gong, and I had some nervous system challenges. So the gong really healed that for me, and like just worked with the gong. We did some gong baths, and really just trying to understand these gongs. And we got a planetary gong for the planet Neptune. And so we started doing research on the planet Neptune, and it's all about purification. It's all about the crown chakra. It's all these different things. And so it's just been kind of this little journey. And then here comes March, and here comes the coronavirus. And something happened. I watched your show, Magenta, and you were talking about the rose gold flame, and you were talking about the trident. And I thought, well, isn't this peculiar? Because that's what's on my gong from the planet Neptune. And I started doing some additional research, and the planet Neptune rules over infectious disease, interestingly enough. And so here we have this gong that means all of these things that are all of these symbols and all of this energy that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of layers. And so right now, this is my favorite symbol for sure, is the trident and the planet Neptune, because I feel like the other thing is it's all about water and this element of water, which is so much a part of who I am. And so it's just amazing when we follow these journeys of symbols and what they mean. And then they connect all of us across planes of existence we didn't even know. So that's definitely the trident and the eye are probably my two biggest ones, because I just love the all-seeing eye for sure. But my husband and I have been working with the trident now to help, clear the energy of infectious diseases. And now we understand what's happening. And I'm sure this is just the first of many gongs we'll get eventually, but you got to save your pennies for those guys. But anyway, so that's my symbol story, because I just think just following the symbols gives you so much information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. I love it.
Me too. The gongs are their own little world, and we're just learning about it still. And I think that that's something too. I don't know about you guys, but the organic openings to things, whether it's books or symbols or dreams or whatever, is like the most profound and amazing stuff compared to directed energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll try to manipulate,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry.
The symbols are the language of light. That's how that universal, galactic, cosmic language presents itself to us here in human form, in symbolic form. and there's the language of light in a positive sense. And there are those on this planet that have hijacked our symbols and inverted them, and we're reclaiming them back. As we reclaim everything back, and we reclaim back the truth, we're reclaiming our symbols too. And the trident is another representation of the Trinity, which is also the triquetra. The Trinity, which is, you know, the one part, the second part, and then making the three. So you move back to that eternal flame as you're moving away from oneness creation back to oneness creation. So it's a incredibly powerful symbol, the trident and the triquetra. And the 9 say, once you have 3, you have all. When you've connected to 3, you have everything. Everything is within the 3. So yeah, I love the trident as well.
Beautiful.
So beautiful. So beautiful. So my next question is actually about your own messages and your mission. Because I think, here's what I think. We've all been talking on YouTube for a while. I mean, I think this is like the new way for all of us, and I love it. I think light workers are infiltrating YouTube, and it's awesome. But I think we talk about so many different things, and we don't always get to share, like, what is our mission? What is our message from these great beings that we connect with and relate to? And I wanted to give us space. You know, it really came when I sat and I thought, gosh, I'm going to get these powerful, you know, channelers and teachers together. Like, what should we talk about? And one of the things that came through from the collective was give space for each of us to share our mission, our message. Like, what is it that we've been doing all this work for years and years and years and years and years? And what do we want to say today in this time frame? And I thought, well, that's perfect. So I'm going to just give space for that. I'm going to sit back and Kristian, why don't you go first this time?
Well, I wanted to say something real quickly about symbols, and I don't know, like, I don't want to trigger any flags, but also the symbology exists within the words that were given in the names of diseases, and there exists within that clarity about what's really going on too. And that's been really sort of a new expansion for me, because I really was experiencing symbols in my life and being spirit led, but then also recognizing that the third dimensional matrix and the negative agenda are also giving us more information in the words they're using and the symbols they're using. So the logos for a lot of corporations and things like. So that's been a really incredible journey for me to go deeper there and see that, like, oh, there's information there too that actually we can use to our benefit, right? To guide us forward in bringing our mission or fulfilling our mission. So I just wanted to add that little piece, because that's been a new and really, because of March, once the Great Awakening started in March, and then once we got the label for that dis-ease, then I was shown the breaking down the etymology of the word and what the symbol was and how it's encoded in it, what it really is and what's really happening. So that really juices me up and lights me up to see that clarity. So my mission, if I chose to accept it, but I don't know that I had a total free will. Of course I did, but there's moments where I'm like, oh, this is okay, this is what we came for. So for me, the message from my highest light team is to support, and the mission and the message that we're bringing through at this time is to support all those called and claiming their divine authority and really stepping into their divine empowerment as divine beings of light in physical format. And that when we embrace that divine power and that divine authority, the divine truth comes, divine love comes, all of that is there. And from that place, we co-create the new reality, the new earth, you know, the golden age, the next golden age that really we can start to feel more and more available to us. And so my work has really been about supporting those called to me and remembering, you know, remembering who you really are has been like a theme that's been guiding me, you know, since I was like 10 years old. I had this moment where I heard this voice and I was like, you have to remember who you really are. And you are bigger than this, you know, at the time, shit show that was unfolding for me as a child. So this remembering who we really are and the divine beingness that we are. And then no one is telling us what to do with our bodies, or we're being governed by divine law, and we're stepping out of the unnatural law that has been ruling humanity, the artificial law that's been ruling humanity for quite some time. So this mission around, or this call around divine authority and self-governance, and from a place of peace and harmony and love and unity. It's not, you know, like where folks can kind of go in that dystopia theme around self-governance. I'm talking about being governed by the only law we came here to be governed by, which is divine law. And that requires our connection with source and with who we really are to be so clear and clean and strong, so that that's what's guiding us forward. And when source is guiding you forward and who you really are is guiding you forward, you love and you create and you prosper and you thrive and you're in joy. So that is really, the remember who you are has been the theme for a very, you know, since I was a child. And then since this great awakening really anchored in, it was about, let's step into our divine authority and let's no longer talk about remembering who we really are, but let's put it into action now, because in that action, we're co-creating the new reality. So I keep going to, you know, not so much about, you know, there's a lot happening right now. And then I also go, what would this look like in a fifth dimensional or higher frequency? You know, what is restaurants when, you know, we're in a fifth dimensional space? And my husband and I were having fun, just like brainstorming, like, oh, what would that look like? And how would that work? And these community dinners, and because we're doing everything from the place of what we love, you know, that shifts everything. So I'm really excited about that, while being really aware of what's happening, and that it's really important that my choices are in alignment with my highest self and my highest source self, because that's how I'm creating the new right here, right now. And if each of us are doing that, you know, we wake up in a whole new reality. So I will stop there because I know you all have amazing things to say, but that's like the passion that's flowing through me at this time. And it's sort of amazing, right, that we're seeing it all come together. I feel like at 10 years old, I got the remember who you are, and now it's like, oh, okay, it's for this. So thank you for opening the space for me to share that.
I love it.
Shall I go next, Magenta, or do you want to go next?
Well, I'll just briefly say that everything Kristian said is basically exactly the same for me. I mean, if I had to narrow the mission down to the absolute core, it's everything that Kristian said. I'm not sure what I could say to add to that. It is about remembering who you are, understanding who you are, and then coming together, understanding your power. We can't move forward and change anything until people understand their own power. But you can't force that understanding on someone else. So you're coming into your own empowerment, your own sovereignty, which Kristian, you're saying divine authority, same thing. Sovereignty, remembering who you are, coming into your power, and then collectively coming together. And the core of the message is, you have forgotten who you are. You can't move forward and make change and manifest what you want when you have forgotten who you are, because when you forget who you are in a place of disempowerment. You feel that you are small and insignificant, and that something outside of you holds the power. Only when you know that the power is you, that you are not small and insignificant, you are extremely pivotal and highly significant in the manifestation of reality itself. When everyone knows this, that's when they come together, and the collective power that's thus created changes worlds. And that's literally what we're doing. So yeah, in other words, basically the exact same core mission as Kristian.
Yeah, I mean, likewise, like, you know, both of what you said is just absolutely on point, you know. And the way I would put it is, for people to, I encourage people to step into and own their divinity, especially with respect to what they're perceiving and feeling and hearing and seeing, rather than accepting what they're being force-fed through the, you know, media, or what's on television, or, you know, what people are saying or whatever. You know, trust their own highest seeing, which is an organic connection. You know, it's just, it's real, it's true, it's organic. You don't really even have to work very hard to connect with it. But it seems that, you know, people have really lost the capacity to connecting with themselves, because, as Magenta said, they've given their power away by trusting what they've been force-fed all these years. You know, and especially now with artificial intelligence and all the other stuff that is being sort of thrust at us. This is a real time of returning to the truth of who we are, and really standing in that and owning it and trusting, again, what we're feeling, hearing and perceiving from inside ourselves, which is really, you know, when we're in alignment with the truth of all that is, and, you know, in alignment with source itself, rather than continually looking for some sort of feedback or truth or something that's being given from outside of ourselves. So it's a real return to what is most organic, authentic, real and true inside our own being, and living from that place. And from that place, you know, change happens, and it happens organically and naturally and easily. Doesn't even require that much work, actually. So it's really all about that. And I'm just really thrilled that we have the opportunity to be able to speak from that place, to encourage people to really just take that step, because it's not a huge step. Actually, it's the most natural, smallest step we'll ever take, really, you know, rather than just continually looking for validation or whatever it is from the outside. So great question, Lisa.
I love all three of you so much. And it's so true. I mean, I think I've said this for years, everyone is psychic. You know, we all have those gifts, and you know, when you're seeing the diamond white light with the four of us and what we're talking about, and any person that you connect with, if they're pointing you back to you.
Yes.
Like, and that's what the three of you guys do. That's why I love you so much. That's why I follow all of your work and have read all of you guys' books and like connect in, because it's that focus of, we have the power. We are divine beings of God's source. We are the creator, and that's the trust that needs to happen. And my mission really has become, I mean, the collective said at the end of March, when Colorado went into quarantine, your job is to create a resource of light. Go. And I was like, okay. And that's how this platform was born. You know, it's like, my mission is to get as many resources in front of all of you who are watching as possible. Mm-hmm. Every single healer and teacher and light source, because the true light workers have been kind of hidden in the shadows. And it's time now to see what the real light is about, and that it's about you. It's about you and us and everything that we're connected with, and this collection of everyone. I was listening to this podcast with Aaron Abke talking about the law of one and all of the memory complexes coming together. And I feel like that's absolutely a lot of what's happening right now, you know, is that all of these memory complexes that we're channeling and connected with are all like coming together, saying, hey, we want to party with each other, because, you know, we all see and feel this energy and this service to others, positive polarized energy that's happening with all of us together. And I think it's amazing. And I feel so happy every single day since this has happened. Like, I just feel joyful, because I feel like, oh my gosh, like, it's safe to say who we are now, and it's okay to do it. Yes. And it's time for us to be together. Like, we don't have to be little hermits, like hiding out, you know, and you know, that's my mission. I mean, my mission is really bringing you guys together. And I went through, and I think probably all of us did, you know, but my awakening was rough. It was turbulent. Julie knows, she was there for a lot of it. And I had to do a lot of it alone. Mm-hmm. Like, it was reading books and finding information, and sometimes, you know, trusting the wrong sources, and, mm-hmm. you know, learning the hard way, and having to look at my own shit, and having to deal with like my own choices and destruction, and then having to look at my lineage and what they had to say. I mean, it's just, oh my God, it's like so much drama. And all of a sudden there's this freedom of like, I can just be me, mm-hmm. and be with my star family and be connected. And I don't have to like operate in these constructs anymore. I don't have to be in those spaces anymore. You know, they talk about coming out of the matrix, and I think it's so much more than what you could ever articulate is coming out of those concepts. And I was in Yellowstone this weekend, which was such a gift, and I just looked at the trees and the animals, and I was like, God, I love this planet. I love this planet. I love coming here. I want to come here again and again and again and again. And I probably signed up to come here and said, please, I love that place. Like, I love breathing that air and, you know, doing those things. And there's a whole lot of work to do, and that makes me exhausted. But at the same time, I love being here anyways, like, and for everyone who's here. And so just what you ladies are saying, it's like, I did not think in January of this year, when I was like twiddling my thumbs, wondering if anybody even cared what I had to say, that I would be on a podcast with the three of you ladies having any kind of conversation. Like, truly, what a freaking gift.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way, Lisa. I'm just so grateful for the Buddhist Biohacker platform. It's just incredible. And I just love how you've brought so many people together, and there's a community and there's a safe place to go, and, you know, it's just growing and growing. And you know, and also with Magenta, with what you've been doing for all these years, I mean, you're kind of way ahead of, you know, each of us in many ways. And, you know, and that must have taken some courage for you to step out. And
I'm glad I've got the platform now, because I can bring others into that. It's like, now I know why I created this platform. It's not for me, it's for the starseeds, it's for the light workers, it's for the people bringing truth. And I have a platform to introduce people and give them a voice. So I'm very pleased about that. But I never intended that. It was never an intention. I think I've probably spoken about this before. My husband and my brother, they discovered YouTube, and they were all getting so excited, like, we could do this, we could do that, we could make a film, we'd take the camera out and do this, that and the other. And they're like, what do you think? And I thought, oh, they're like two children. And I was like, I just wasn't interested, busy researching things and talking to the nine, and wasn't interested in YouTube whatsoever. And I remember talking to them one day, and I said, you know, I think one of you two will get quite well known on YouTube, actually. I don't know which one of you it will be. I've got a feeling that, but I mean, I don't know, it may yet be them, who knows, but it was me, and I wasn't interested. But this is how it works. And Lisa, you just said how you want to come back, you love this planet, and you want to come back again and again and again and again. That is the secret to leaving the reincarnational trapping system. You need to feel how you feel. You need to be willing with all of your heart to come back here. And only then do you leave the trapping system. Because as long as you don't want to come back here, you will.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we said last time, right, Lisa? Remember, we had this conversation with someone, I think, who said she didn't want to come back. And I was like, yes, I do. I signed up already.
You have to genuinely want to come back, because if you're like, I don't want to come back, I'm never coming back here again, do not ever sign me up for Earth again, you will, because you're in resistance, and it will just draw you back.
So it's the same. My mind.
Yeah.
Because I've said I'm not coming back, I don't want to come back, so I have some work to do.
You do. You're stuck, Kristian.
I know. I'm like, I'm never coming back. So thank you, Magenta.
And it's an easy switch when you're at the level that you are at, with your ability to hold that consciousness. You can switch into that consciousness and understand it and truly find it, and there you are. You're released. I don't think you were in the trapping system anyway, to be honest.
I love what you're saying, though, because it's, you know, this is such an amazing place. Like, I just don't know, like, why you wouldn't want to come and figure this all out. In fact, my fear, or like the destructive emotion that comes up in me, is when I think about having to leave again. Because it's like, oh, like, and it's so silly, because I used to think I was afraid of death. Like, I thought that's what it was. And I thought, I'm a medium. Like, this is insane. Like, I know where they go. Like, I know I'm not going anywhere. But I realized it wasn't the fear of death. It was just the grief of like leaving this space. Like, I can't get enough of it. And I've noticed that about my personality, and I understand it better now than I ever have, because now I understand my mission. And and why I chose to be here. And it makes such a difference when you guys talk about remember who you are. And I love that we're talking about that, because that is our theme for our global awakening in November. Because once you remember, I can tell you guys, and I don't know about the three of you, I would love to hear, but for me, the minute I understood what's actually happening and was looking at the truther information and my information, because I had years and years and years, I have since 2008, all this information. And for me, it was very esoteric, and I was looking at things, I understood it, but it was my husband who went and was like, I don't know about all this. And he went and found all this information. My God, in the last 2 months, I was like, holy cow, like he's awakened himself and me and people around. I was like, whoa. And once I saw all of it and all the pieces and parts and understood how it all worked together, that was when the collective showed up and said, okay, now we can tell you everything. Like, you get it now. We've been waiting for you to figure this out so we can tell you everything. And so I don't know about you guys, but it seems like the more that your consciousness expands, it's like, then it's like the juicy stuff really starts to flow. The messaging changes, and the way that you view things just really changes. Like, how I even see what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis is like completely different than it was a year ago.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's somehow, you know, being given, well, it's obvious kind of, but being given the insight into kind of the back workings of what's going on really helps. It helps you to, well, with respect to where I am, it helps me to really knuckle down and focus even more and stay on track even more, and, you know, really support people to essentially wake up to who they are, and to like we've been saying, to own it and not be living in fear with respect to what the appearance is showing. So that's really how it kind of works in my life. It really fuels me to get kind of fiery about it, actually, in many ways. And to double down and really do what I've been asked to do, even if I'm being handed something that I'm thinking, oh my gosh, where do I even begin with this, you know? And just trust the flow of it and go with it.
Yeah.
I sort of feel like I sidelined Magenta your story, so I wanna bring it back, because like you were just blowing my mind with the leaving piece. But I feel like Magenta touched on something so important of, like, she never intended for the platform. You were telling that story, never intended for it to be what it is. And I feel like that is true. Like, the best things in our life, we weren't trying to like make happen. They just, like the signs, you know, your husband and your brother. And so I'd love to hear more about that story, because I was really riveted by it. But that's how this life works, right? I wasn't trying to find out about political systems or organizations or any of these things. I just said, divine will, let divine will be done. Let me be a conduit for divine will. And then I started getting all of this information. It started blowing my mind, and then dreams with presidents and people showing up and just being like, what is happening? But I wanted to also turn it over to you, Magenta, because I want to hear more about that story. And because I think it's such an important message for everyone to remember, that you're not trying to make it happen. When it's divine will, it happens.
Yeah, I think when the picture comes to you, the story comes to you, is when you ask for it, really. Yeah. So for me, before I made a connection with my then spirit guide, I actually sat there and I was feeling something around me. Everything was becoming overwhelming. I was sensing people's emotions all at once. I didn't understand it. It was driving me crazy. I didn't know how to work with it all, to actually feel a room full of people and actually sense everything that they were feeling all at once. I was completely out of control with the psychic understanding. And I remember speaking to my brother, actually, and he said, you know, you can, there's ways that you can actually enter into this, but you need to enter into this journey willingly. And I understood what he was saying to me. We had a long 2-hour conversation, so I couldn't tell you everything we said. But that night I sat on the end of my bed and said, if there is something out there, because I've been feeling it for weeks and weeks, if there is something out there or someone out there that wants to speak to me, then I'm open to it. I mean, this is way before I did the whole exercise to specifically to go into channeling. This is before that. So that asking comes before any sort of focus into any particular modality or tool. So I would say, if you are out there, then I'm open. I mean, come to me, talk to me. So that's one sort of step into that picture. And then information, as Kristian says, information starts coming. And I think the next sort of big step for me was fast forward to 2008. So that was in 1993 when I asked, if there's anything out there, please come to me. Fast forward to 2008 and done all this work with them. And the upgrade of that spirit guide to this collective that I call the Nine. I think the next really powerful step for me was surrender, which is, I now know who you are. I've spoken to you for X amount of years. We've been on a journey together. I've had a relationship with you. I've not listened to you. I've done things the complete opposite from what you told me to do. I've tested you. I've done everything I can to find trust in you. But it's when the trust comes. That's why when people ask me, how do you know, Magenta, that the Nine you're channeling are actually benevolent? How do you know they're not demons or whatever? How can I explain to them how I know? I don't even try, because it's so personal. It's so subjective. But it comes with this surrender, this trust. You know, without any doubt, who you are connecting with and what that connection is. And you surrender to it. And I literally, in my mind, was down on my knees before the Nine. I didn't actually literally get on the floor, but I was in my mind saying, I know who you are and I know what my mission is, and it's to work with you. And basically, I'm yours, you know, use me as you wish. And be careful when you say that, because if you do not have that knowing and that absolute trust, anything can pop in. You must have the absolute knowing that when you say, use me as your vessel, you know exactly who you are talking to. And if that communication, if that group, that energy, that entity is benevolent and loving, it will say to you, get up off your knees. Then, okay, because I'm sort of went into this worship surrender, because I realized the Nine are so much greater than me. And you know, it's the surrender is like giving over to them. And they taught me, no, that's not the way. You don't, yes, you make a surrender, but you're surrendering to yourself. So they taught me stand up. And so I think that's when the story starts to come, the picture starts to form, when you ask and then you surrender to the asking. But I will say that the picture never stops coming. I still don't have the big picture. I'm still learning every single day. Going to Kristian, asking about that story, just to shine a bit more of a light on it. I mean, we all did drama together. I met my husband through amateur dramatics. I'd done some professional work. My family were in the theatre. My brother was an actor. He was a singer. So we all did drama together. And the two of them were in the process of making some films. They'd got some camera equipment. I just finished a creative writing course. So, you know, I had my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, saying, if you write a script, you know, with the three of us, we'll go out and do, and I actually did. I mean, I did help direct a little thing with them, and we actually made a few of these films. They are up on YouTube somewhere, embarrassingly. I don't think I'm going to give anyone the URL, but we made these crazy things. But I was so connected with the Nine at the time. I was getting information about the ascension process. I'd just been told that what was a rehearsal back in 1993 was actually really happening now. My focus was there, and it wasn't with the drama anymore. It was almost like drama and acting is high creativity, and I loved it my whole life, as well as writing fiction and reading fiction. I loved it my whole life, but I was going into the beyond that higher creativity, the connection, the actual communication and drawing down truth goes above drama, theatre and fiction into a true real story. The acting and the drama and the story writing and reading is there in real life. That's what I was going into. So then you go beyond the higher creativity. So the whole YouTube thing for me was just you know, just wasn't my thing anymore. And I don't think my brother and my husband at the time could understand, because it'd been the three of us doing all this creative stuff. And then one day I discovered Risa back then in 1990. No, this was 2008. Risa 5 was out online, and I don't think he's online anymore. But back then in 2008, he had a huge channel and he was drawing down his stream of consciousness. He called it connecting with the inner teachers of light, but you know, it's the same sort of thing that we're all doing. And I remember thinking, wow, I can do that, you know. And so there I've got my husband and brother, you know, asking me, when are you writing the next script? And I said to my husband, look, rather than me writing a script, they were so desperate to get on YouTube. If I brought some of my channeling forward, do you think you could put some pictures and music or something towards it, like this guy has done? And he was so desperate to get on YouTube, but it wasn't really what he wanted to do. But he was like, well, yeah. And I thought, well, that's where I want to put my energy, not in the script writing. So that's kind of the story of how things went. But it was their wish to get on YouTube. YouTube probably isn't what I would have discovered, but because they were going on about it so much, and we had uploaded some, you know, we'd done quite a few little sketches. So I was already on YouTube with these little sketches that we'd done together. So I already had a connection with YouTube, but it was the spiritual that I wanted to go into. And the weirdest thing was I'd never channeled in front of Daniel at that time. And we'd been together for, you know, quite a few years. And I talked to him about my spiritual beliefs and the channeling experience, but I'd never actually shown him any of my channeling. It was very private still. So when I first bought the very first channeling forward for the very first video, that was the first time he ever heard my channeling. So yeah, it's quite a story, and that was 2008. So
I love that.
Thank you for sharing that. I love those magical stories of, like, you know, your husband and brother were bringing it in, and it was like this amazing opening for you to share your gifts. And that's why it's so important to follow the signs, right? Because we just don't know where it's going to be leading us to.
I'm trying to give it back to them. I'm repeatedly saying, come on my channel. I say to my brother, let me interview you. My brother has so much knowledge and so much information, and he has that connection. He has his guides. He brings forward the downloads. He doesn't do it maybe the same as me, but he's still got that connection. And I'm like, come on. He's like, no, I don't want to go in front. You know, and I keep thinking, one of these days you're going to have to get on my channel. And obviously I've just managed to get my husband to go on and speak and, you know, share, because everybody who's in a state of awakening, who has a pure heart, every single person has a story to share and information to give that's going to help someone, probably a group of people. We all have that, and that's what this is about. That's why it's a collective movement.
Yes.
Oh, that fills me up, because yeah, I just I found my old CD. I did a CD in 2008, also 2008, which is interesting. I did a CD. I did a group channeling event where I channeled oxen for a whole group of people, and we had recorded it. And so I found this CD and I put it in, and my husband's never, because most everything I do at this point is through automatic writing. I don't usually have them come through me. And so I put in this CD, and this voice comes out of the radio. My husband's like, that's you. And I was like, yes, but it's really him, you know, communicating. And I found his first words today, because I was kind of going through, I tried to write a book years ago with all of my channeled information, because I had channeled Merlin and Yogananda and some different angelic beings and things. So I was kind of like flipping through it, like, what is all this about anyways? And I'm blown away with what I read. But Oxen's first words, he came through me. I remember I was sitting with my friend, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And my office at the time, you guys, oh my gosh, my office at the time, I had painted like bright blood red. And I had painted all the molding gold, and I had painted my own gold hieroglyphs, Egyptian hieroglyphs, on the wall. Like, I don't know who I was, but I was like up till like 3 in the morning. I was getting all this information. I painted this office. I'm in this red office. And I looked at my friend and I said, I think I'm in a channel. I'm pretty sure this being's going to come through. And all of a sudden I was like gone, and this other energy was speaking, and she about fell off her chair. But his first words, I wanted to share them, were, trust your heart, not your mind. Always seek shelter in the heart. That was his first words. I saw those this morning. I wanted to share them because you're talking about trust and surrender, Magenta. And I think, and Julie and I have talked about this a bunch of times, you know, it's the trust. That's to me, that's the final pivotal step in stepping into who you are, is really trusting who you are, because there's some wild stuff out there. And you start looking at it, you're like, oh, like you really do have to trust your intuition and yourself. And it's more important now than ever. You know, I was just talking about this with my own community. You have to trust your own clairvoyance, you guys. You've got to stop, because there's truth or stuff that's real, and truth or stuff that's false. There's good stuff and bad stuff, and good healers and bad healers and whatever, but it's really all the same. But to have true discernment, that's a huge word for me, because I had terrible discernment in relationships. And I remember writing discernment down and putting it on my altar for like the longest time when I was single before I met my husband. And now it's like a huge word, because I realized that it's not just about a relationship. Like, to have true discernment of the truth and to understand how to filter everything that we're learning and everything that everyone is learning, because the things are coming out all over the place. You have to use your own clairvoyance. You have to use your own trust. And if you don't trust, then you don't have anything.
You took the words right out of my mouth when you said it's more important now than ever. And that's so true, because now, as you say, with all this confusion everywhere, all of these different messages and all of these different ways of looking at how things could be, you know, is Trump really independent and working with Q? Is Trump good but Q is bad? Is Q misleading the truthers? Or is that all just one great big psyop, and really the cabal are controlling the whole lot of them? You know, unless you have that knowing, that trust, that ability to discern, you're lost in this sea of information. And I know that there are people who are in a state of coming into that trust. So then they will find people like us, and there are many like us, and are able to work out, do I resonate with this person or this person? Or even if they can't connect with that ability to resonate, they can think, well, I've just listened to 10 people and say 8 of them are saying this, but 2 of them are saying that. So let's work that out. So we've got this sort of cross-referencing due diligence work, and everybody is on the same journey. And I think, you know, one of the main lessons we're learning now collectively is about our ability to discern. And it's everything you were saying, Kristian, about that that sovereignty, that divine authenticity, or divine whatever authority, divine authority. Yeah, that's such a good way of putting it, because it's like you're faced with one thing: this is true, this is false, and they look the same. How do you know which is which? And that's the lesson every single one of us are going through at different levels. So those of us with good ability to discern, we're being tested more and more and more. And then we'll come to something and think, oh my goodness me, I can't work this one out. So you spend time and find all of those tools that you have to come out with the answer. And then there's the next thing. We're all at different levels of discerning what is truth and what is false, because we can't move and ascend into that higher octave, that higher harmonic of reality, that higher dimension, until we've got to a higher polarity. And in order to get to the higher polarity, we need to move away from this really strong polarity between good and bad, truth and lies. We have to raise that ourselves. So that's what we're doing when we move through this discernment. We're actually raising the polarity and creating that higher density. So this is a huge lesson for everyone right now.
Amen. 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 Yes. So much. Yes. And like you said, even for those of us that are doing the work we're doing, because I can see it in my own life, you know, getting more clear about that discernment piece is so huge. It's so important. I'm having the experience of seeing things like you were sharing, Lisa, that I channeled back in 2018. I channeled a book called Love Now, and we're reading it now. And like, it's the exact message for right now. And like, had no idea when I was bringing it through. But it's that trust of like, I trust my team. You know, I've gone through the surrender process with them and all of that. Like, I trust my team, so I'm putting it out there. Let's see what happens. It's incredible when we allow that trust to guide us forward, because I'm making decisions in my own life right now differently because of my expanded discernment. And I'm seeing things that I trusted to bring through now from before coming through now. It's like, now it's coming to fruition. It's just this, as you were speaking, Magenta, I saw just like this unfolding, this image of these cards just like unfolding, this continuous unfolding for us right now of stepping into that now.
Yeah, it's all for right now. I've got 12 years of videos on YouTube, and yet everyone is for now. Everyone is for now. You could just pick any and it will give you a message for now. And I didn't know that at the time either, because I thought it was for then, although I did have a feeling that some of them were a bit futuristic. And they are for what is yet to come as well. They're for next year and the year after that, and potentially however long.
It's amazing. It is so mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this, because, you know, all of us, all of those of us who are doing this work are saying the same thing. You know, oh my gosh, you know, even like with journal writing from 25 years ago, when I look at some of those messages that I was given and I wrote down, it's like, oh my God, I was only seeing it in part then, and now I'm seeing how clearly it's speaking to what is happening now. And in much of the content that I've written in terms of courses and programs and stuff, it's like, oh my gosh, it was telling me then, you know, all those years ago, what was going to happen now. And it's just so amazing. And so many, you know, everybody is saying the same thing, essentially, that we were being shown what was going to happen, you know, 20, 25 or 30 years ago even.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, even reading, I'm obsessed with Edgar Cayce and have a really strong connection with him. I've channeled him a few times, and he spoke of the golden age in 1940s. I mean, he was talking about this years and years ago, and, you know, it just keeps coming through, and it's this timeless information. And we've already gone to 2 hours, but I do have one more. I know there is no time, right, when we're talking, but I do have one thing, because I'm all about resources. You know, I'm all about the resources. And for everybody who's listening and watching, all three of these women have incredible books. All of you guys have multiple books that you've channeled and written that create awakenings that are just awesome. I mean, I've read 2 of Kristian's books. I've read all of Julie's books. Magenta, I'm on the 4th of your books, and they're just awesome. They really, really are. And I wrote a book too that's all about anti-modern medicine. So I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for that, but that's what my book's about. But I do have a question for Magenta and Julie, or not even a question, but something I want to point out, because I'm a researcher full on, and I've always been. And so part of what makes you guys so great is that you have all of this great information and teachings and tools. And one of the things that I'm really good at, one of my gifts, is being able to see how they all work together. And we're in this incredible, profound time. Oh my gosh, and I'm getting goosebumps because they're ready for me to say it. But we're in this incredible time, this time of integration. And when you think of tools, there's something that Magenta has spoken of, and there's something that Julie has spoken of, and both of you have written about this too, that I think is really important. I wanted the 2 of you to kind of speak to it in your own way. But Magenta, you spoke about a 3-step process of integration. And there's a whole video, you guys, so you guys can watch the video. So you don't have to go through the whole process. But I would love you for you to touch on the 3 steps, because what Julie does, Julie is at the forefront of shadow work. Just released a book about the shadow that is like, God, I thought I had done a lot of shadow work, and my God, it's like bringing out stuff in me. And so I feel for everybody who's listening, you really need to listen to, or you want to listen to Magenta's video about this process. It's the antidote for what's happening right now. And combine that with Julie's book about meeting the shadow and finding yourself, because those two tools together are what's going to take you to that space where you want to be here and come back, and the forgiveness and the love for all the good and all the bad. Because when you rise up above and you see the matrices around the planet, and you see all these inner workings and all this stuff that's out there, and the negative agenda and the light workers and all these things up there, it's all just one thing, pushing for ascension of this collective energy so that our planet can ascend. And so it's only in you doing your individual work that this works. It's the only way it happens. So you can't just listen to these ladies share their stories. You have to go do the work. And part of doing that work is connecting in with Magenta's videos and Julie's books. So I just wanted to throw that to both of you. I know I didn't prep you on that or say anything, but I'd love for you to share a little bit, Magenta, first about your 3 steps and your thoughts about this, because Julie, I know you're going to see what I see and what she's saying about how the shadow works with this and how that all integrates. So that's all. That's it.
Thank you. Bringing this back to our very first topic of discussion, this 3-step process was given to me in a lucid dream. So the whole thing came to me in a lucid dream. And I think, you know, if I had to pick a second favorite lucid dream, it would be very difficult because I've had so many, but this would be certainly one of them. Without going into the whole dream, the 3-step process itself is quite simple, and I'll go through it as quickly as possible. Step 1, you need to understand the plan, and I mean the dark plan, because we need to know, if you will, our opponent. And it's important not to see that as an opponent. However, this is a attempted planetary takeover, an attack, if you will. So we need to understand this, work with any fear we have that comes up, but we need to understand the dark plan. So you just go out there and find out what it is. That's your sort of grounded research. When you have a good idea of what the plan is, you then step 2, and this is everything that Kristian was talking about, the divine authenticity, the divine, what was it again? Divine
authority.
That you know, I haven't put those 2 words together like that, but it's perfect. It's the divine authority. It is your declaration of sovereignty. It is you bringing down your boundaries and saying, okay, I understand the plan, and my response is no, absolutely not. I do not consent to this. But if you stay there, you are, and you can stay there for a while you're learning, but if you stay there, you are in a sort of a resistance. You're still in a polarity. So you then go to step 3, which is acceptance, forgiveness, even for those that are presenting the dark plan, which is very difficult for a lot of the sort of truth seekers that are in step 1 or step 2 or both. That's the 5th dimension. We're looking at 3rd dimension, 4th dimension, if you will, and 5th dimension. 3, 4, 5, step 1, 2, and 3. So step 3 is forgiveness. The understanding that we chose polarity, that some of us chose to incarnate within the positive polarity, some of us chose to incarnate within the negative polarity, and we all have a mission to follow within that, which is not an excuse for what the negative elite or negative factions are doing. Not in the 3rd dimension when you're in step 1, but it is giving you the higher explanation from the point of view that there is only one soul. So when it comes to one soul, oneness, the group soul, the logos, that aspect has split itself into multiple parts. So we are then going to a higher perspective. Now, it doesn't work in a linear sense necessarily. You can be working on step 1, 2, and 3 at the same time. Some people come in from step 3. They're totally in the oneness, the unity, the multidimensionality, but they haven't made a declaration of sovereignty. And they certainly haven't looked at the dark plan. They don't even want to look at the dark plan. So you've got some people in step 3, some in 2, some in 1. The point is for you to do all 3 steps. When you do all 3 steps, This is a complete, whole, holistic teaching in and of itself. It is a pathway. And the reason why I was given this, and I won't say from the 9, because it wasn't the 9. It was these masters from Tiamat. It's still the 9, if you will, but a different aspect coming in. So I was taken into the remnants of Tiamat in the asteroid belt when I was given that teaching. So it's a complete teaching in and of itself. It's I guess a rapid teaching. It's condensing all of the spiritual teachings and enlightenment tools into one sort of fast track, small model, one presentation, because there are some people that are coming to all of this now, and we're right in the middle of the attempted planetary taker. We don't have 20 years to study this. So those that are coming to this now, which is right for them, it gives them a rapid step process, a rapid step teaching to be able to move through an ascension process in lockdown, which is what the video is called, the 3-step process to ascension in lockdown. So it isn't, I haven't brought this forward in a book or any writing, it's just in the one video, because I mean, I could have done, when I bought everything through, I could have sat down and written a book, but that could have taken me 6 months, and then the editing, it wouldn't have been out until summer of 2021, and it was needed now. So I actually recorded the video the next day. And so, yes, that's that particular teaching.
Wow, thank you. I just love that, because, with respect to what I was told by the masters and the saints and sages and siddhas I work with, I think it was at the beginning of July, when Lisa invited me to join her in a question and answer session, which was due to be held on August 1st. My team, if you will, told me to write a book on meeting the shadow. And they said it was really important. And the reason it was really important was because time was finished. It's over with respect to kind of lingering in the spiritual search, the spiritual seeking, going after this teacher and that teacher to get a new high or to get a new method or, new technique. And all those things are absolutely fantastic, and they have their place and they're wonderful, especially when we first wake up. But what I've seen through, especially through working with and counseling people that have been on a spiritual path and spiritual journey for like 20, 30, sometimes 40 years and living in ashrams in some situations, there's been this real denial of their own darkness, their personal shadow. And the thing is until you actually work with, you meet and greet your own fear, and those parts of you that you'd rather not see and you don't want other people to see and you want to disown and sort of push away from you, then you cannot live in the light, as the divinity that you are, unless you recognize and you meet and greet your own light and you meet and greet your own darkness. So both of those aspects are really, really important. And that was why I was directed to write this book in a very short space of time and to, get that out there. Because otherwise what happens is there's a lot of what I call spiritual bypassing, and kind of being like a spiritual junkie, where you want to meditate and do all the practices and get all these highs, but you'd rather not sort of look at the darkness. And then there's a tendency then, because obviously whatever we don't own within ourselves, we have to kind of look for outside ourselves with respect to finger pointing and blaming, and it's an us and them sort of scenario. And we cannot be in truth until we've really owned everything and the fullness that we are with respect to the light and with respect to the darkness. And really, we've heard the phrase that you really own and you find the darkness, but find the light by going through the darkness and really welcoming both aspects and bringing the two elements together. And then when you do that, and actually when you actually start working with the shadow, it can be a little bit daunting to begin with, but there's so much incredible creative energy that comes out of meeting your own sort of limiting beliefs, or the denial aspects of who you are, or parts of yourself that you maybe inherited from your parents that they didn't kind of advocate the support in you. There's so much creative energy that comes out of that. It's absolutely phenomenal. And we can only be in truth if we're familiar with both. And, you know, the great thing about doing the personal work on the shadow is that you then help the whole of humanity awaken to the truth of who they are. You help uplift humanity, because when you're in the truth within yourself with respect to who you are, then your light, your energy, everything about you changes. And there's a tremendous force and a tremendous capacity to awaken other people. And, you know, all of us here, this is what we're called to, and we've done this work. And so, you know, a lot of what we're doing with respect to supporting other people is to help them navigate, you know, meet and greet their own darkness and not be afraid of it, essentially. Because if you're afraid of that within yourself, you're going to be terrified of whatever's happening in the seemingly, you know, outside world. So I'm so glad that you've asked us to speak about that, Lisa, because it's really important.
It is. And what I want to say from my own direct experiences, I've been working on my shadow for 15 plus years. And when I saw the dark plan and really got it, because I definitely was not looking at it prior to this year. And Magenta, I found your channel in November, and I was like, wow, this is a lot of what I've seen and felt and dreamt about. And then my husband like brought linear context to it. But what I've seen is, and what I want everyone listening to really hear, is it's very easy to spiritually bypass. It's also very easy to truther bypass. Because the minute that it's easy to say, oh, it's all their fault, the programming and this and that and the other thing. And so for me, I experienced my own recapitulation of my shadow, because what happened was I'd already done that work on myself. And so when I saw the dark plan, it gave context to some of what I'd already been experiencing. And because of all of that information and all of the work, I was able to see my own part in it. And if you're not able to see your own part in it and accept it and love it, I actually did a post about Victoria's Secret, because I was in fashion, you guys, for 20 years. I worked for Victoria's Secret for a decade. And guess who's Les Wexner from the Limited brands, who I've met at brand conferences with all of these women, was just in a documentary with our buddy Epstein. So the point is, I had my own part in that experience, my own trauma, my own issues that I experienced, but I was able to integrate it because of the support of the shadow. And so I really wanted to bring this out, and I know we're running long on time, but I really did just want to share this, because for everybody out there, Julie's book and this video from Magenta are like ultimately like your best tools to manage all that's coming to the surface and all that's going to come to the surface in the next 12 weeks, because the next 12 weeks are going to be, as we know, a big party on the linear experience, if we want to say it in a positive way. And so as these things come out, working with your shadow is going to take you to that step 3, where you can have forgiveness and acceptance, because you can forgive and accept that part in yourself. You're no longer denying the shadow in your own self. And it's just so important. So thank you, ladies, both of you, for sharing that information, because it's really, and I will get, I know we'll have all the links to everything in the show notes, but for everybody listening, what I'll do, Magenta, is I'll share that link to your video too in the show notes, and then Julie for your book. So because it's just really important, you guys, that these are the tools. Like, these women are here because they've been my tools, you know, my support and teachers, and Kristian, my soul sister over there, who we're probably on the same starship, I'm sure. But so I just wanted to get into that, because I think it's just so important. If you can't work on your shadow, if you can't integrate, if you can't accept and forgive, then you can't have the discernment that we're talking about. I mean, that's what I feel is like the discernment comes because you're no longer pointing fingers. And it goes back to Buddhist biohacker and our practice of nonviolence. You know, there's a lot of violence in the words on social media and different attacks that are happening on all these different outlets. And I think that is negatively polarized behavior. And that comes because you're projecting your shadow. So if you integrate that, you can start to hear and see people in a different way and really understand where they're coming from. And if you've been following the dark plan and you're having trouble integrating it, then there's Julie's book to work through that integration. So it's like the two of you guys really have this great set of tools that work with each other to really gather all the information you need to be successful. So I just wanted to share that, and that was long-winded, and we're already over 2 hours, my gosh. But any parting words, you guys, before we close down?
I would just say it's been such a joy to go talk about lucid dreaming, because I've never gotten to do that, and certainly not on a video. So that was really fun to go there. And I love, Lisa, that you brought in the shadow work with Magenta's 3-step plan, because those are that's like the 4 steps, you know, those are the pieces. I just had, and Magenta, to your point, you were talking about the integration, how some folks are in step 3 or 2 or 1. And I've seen this in the group that I lead, and folks are like, they don't want to hear about the dark plan. They just want to be in step 3. And it's like, okay, guys, it's not how that works. And folks get really triggered because they haven't done their shadow work. And so I'm definitely seeing this in my community, and we just keep directing them back to going deeper into their shadow work and following. I love, Magenta, that you laid it out in the 3 steps, because that's literally 3rd, 4th, 5th dimension. You have to be integrated in that. And that takes doing your shadow work. So I just wanted to really speak to that, because that's exact work I'm doing in my communities, and it's so important. And I love that there's these beautiful tools to simplify it, because that's what folks need. They need it to be distilled down so they can just see it. Okay, this is what I need to do. And for those who are getting stuck in step 1, really giving them that shadow work and that understanding that we can't just get stuck there, because the whole point of this is to ascend out of the dark plan. And so it's just a joy to share with all of you ladies, and I'm so grateful that you're all out in the world. Lisa, we have such a deep soul sister connection. Magenta, I just knew, like, yeah, when you came to me in that dream, I was like, okay, thank you, Godmother. It felt like just this really beautiful energy supporting me and cheering me on. Thank you. And thank you, Julie, for the beautiful work that you do in the world. The shadow work is just so critical for all of us. And so thank you, ladies. It's just such a joy to come together.
Well, likewise, thank you so much. What a joy, and what incredible energy. I mean, jeepers, it's just been amazing this afternoon. I really, really appreciate this opportunity. I really love connecting with you all. It's incredible and really heartfelt, and really timely, because people are looking for touchstones for truth. They're looking for support, they're looking for community, they're looking for ways to be able to navigate through these challenging times. We're each offering that in our own way, and it's an incredible gift. And I'm also really, really grateful for all those people that take the time to listen and to watch this recording later and really connect in and listen to what we're sharing, because everybody's involvement is really important, and it's so valuable. We each bring everything essentially to this support system. So it's just amazing, and I'm really grateful. Thank you, Lisa, for inviting me and for inviting me into this group. It's been fantastic.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Kristian and Julie, and it was lovely to meet you both and connect with you both.
Thank you guys so much. I mean, really, I'm honored that the 3 of you were willing to come together and have this discussion. And I also hope and trust that everyone who's watching and listening, really engage in these women's energy. Like, don't just listen, but engage and integrate and read and watch videos and connect in. I mean, one of the things that the collective said I think it was for my August transmission, was to notice the teachers that have been presented to you since November 11th of 2019. review their body of work, and begin to integrate what they're teaching. And so that is so important. The integration is what's important. You can skim the surface of 100 things, but listen, research, read, and take action, because now there's no time left. You have to do it now. This is it. So thank you so much, ladies. And thank you to everybody who's listening and watching. We love you so much, for sure. So much love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.